Every man believes that persistence, attention, and constant reassurance are what make a woman respect him. He texts, he calls, he bends, hoping his devotion will translate into value. Yet, in that very devotion lies the seed of contempt. She senses it. She smells the need, the urgency, the emotional dependence, and in that scent, respect dies. Most men fail to see this. They mistake proximity for power, but the truth, harsh and invisible to the untrained mind, is that respect is never granted to those who chase it. It is earned through restraint, through measured absence, through the calm and unshakable knowledge that you exist independent of her approval. You have likely experienced it. A woman drifts when you cling, yet a mere pause, an absence, a withdrawal sends her mind spiraling. She begins to question her own choices, to replay moments, to wonder what she truly loses. This is not manipulation. It is the natural order of emotional evaluation. When you chase, you signal scarcity in yourself, an insecurity that cheapens your presence. When you withdraw, you signal abundance, self-possession, the silent proof that your value is not contingent on her attention. And suddenly, she begins to see you differently. Consider the contrast. The average man believes he demonstrates value through constant engagement. He over-explains, over-apologizes, over-invests. She grows accustomed, almost bored, because the brain interprets predictability as low reward. The Stoic man, in contrast, radiates value by creating a psychological space where she must reckon with him on his terms. He disappears without drama, responds without desperation, exists without asking. In that void, curiosity awakens. She begins to measure herself against the standard of his calm, and a subtle recalibration occurs. Respect is formed in absence, not presence. It is provoked by emotional scarcity and the quiet demonstration of self-command. The mechanism is deeper than mere attraction. It is rooted in evolutionary psychology. Women, wired to detect stability, strength, and autonomy, unconsciously assign respect and consideration based on the certainty that a man's attention is earned, not given freely. By withdrawing, you trigger what psychologists call a re-evaluation loop. Her mind cycles through memories and emotions, contrasting what she desires with what she risks losing. In that loop, regret emerges, not always immediate but inevitable. She begins to replay your moments of patience, your indifference to provocation, your unflappable composure. Every micro-expression she once dismissed gains new weight. Every conversation she took lightly becomes a small monument to your self-possession. This is where most men fail to recognize their own power. They see withdrawal as surrender, as loss, as emotional defeat. But the Stoic understands detachment is mastery. By letting go, by stepping back, by refusing to submit to her whims or the lure of attention-seeking validation, you create a psychological paradox she cannot ignore. You become a standard she measures herself against. You become the benchmark of what she values, and in that reflection, respect grows. Not because you demanded it, not because you manipulated it, but because you revealed that your life is governed by a principle higher than desire or reaction. Pause for a moment and observe this dynamic in your own life. How often have you doubled down when interest waned, sending more texts, more calls, more declarations of care? And yet, when you held still, when you embraced absence with calm, the shift became tangible. She paused. Her tone changed. Her attention subtly reoriented toward you. What occurred in that silent space is profound. Her brain, left without the predictable reward of your compliance, began to assign value to what she once overlooked. Curiosity stirred, reflection took root. And within that reflection, a subtle but undeniable respect began to form. This is the invisible architecture of attraction and valuation. It is not seen in grand gestures or shouted declarations, but in the quiet mastery of self-possession. Every man capable of this understands a principle both ancient and immutable. The moment you let go, you do not lose. You ascend. You ascend above need, above fear, above the petty dance of attention and validation. And she, unconsciously, must follow that ascension with evaluation. Respect, once absent, now emerges as a byproduct of your unyielding presence in absence. The paradox is simple yet profound. She respects him most when he is least available, not because he punishes her, not because he seeks control, but because he demonstrates that his value is not measured by her recognition, but by his adherence to self-mastery. And when she feels this shift, her mind begins to reconstruct the narrative. The moment she dismissed gains significance. Her emotions are forced to realign, and her perception of you deepens into something she cannot superficially replicate or dismiss. Few men understand this, and even fewer employ it consciously. Most mistake persistence for power, presence for influence, attention for value. But in truth, power lies in withdrawal, influence lies in self-command, and value lies in the silent demonstration of autonomy. When you embrace this truth, you are no longer reacting to her whims. You are setting the terms of your own narrative, and in doing so, you redefine hers. Once the seed of absence is planted, her mind begins to oscillate between what she desires and what she risks losing. This is not conscious calculation, it is instinctive evaluation. She notices nuances she once ignored, the inflection of your voice, the way your gaze doesn't waver, the deliberate calm in your gestures. Each detail becomes amplified because it is no longer drowned in the noise of chasing. In her absence of control, her brain begins constructing scenarios. What does he feel? Why does he not seek me? What does it mean that he continues without disruption, without reaction, without pleading? In these silent interrogations, respect begins to take root, imperceptible yet undeniable. Psychologists describe this as a re-evaluation cycle, a loop triggered when predictable patterns are broken. When men flood her attention, the predictable loop is endless. She disengages, not out of malice, but because the reward loses novelty. But when the loop is interrupted, through measured absence, composure, and the subtle display of indifference, the mind shifts. Novelty returns. The unexpected presence of stability and absence creates cognitive tension. She cannot categorize you easily. Her instincts, calibrated to detect value through challenge and reward, now perceive scarcity as a form of mastery. In other words, her subconscious begins assigning higher value to a man who exists on his own terms. This is where most men fail to grasp the psychological magnitude of withdrawal. They imagine respect can be demanded or persuaded through logic, words, or repeated displays of affection. They do not realize that respect is a mirror of perception. The moment she perceives autonomy, strength, and emotional consistency, she must reconcile her previous assumptions. Every lapse she once judged, every dismissal she once offered, now replays through a filter of recalculated meaning. The shift is subtle, almost invisible, yet profound. She is reconstructing the mental map of who you are, not through what you say, but through what you refuse to do. She notices the absence of need, and in that absence, she discovers the presence of value. Consider the paradox. Absence is often mistaken for weakness by those unversed in Stoic principles. The average man sees it as loss. The Stoic sees it as signal. By withdrawing, you are not retreating. You are broadcasting a silent message of self-possession. You are demonstrating that your attention is earned, not assumed, that your life is governed by principle, not whim, that your emotional state is impervious to her fluctuations. And in her unconscious mind, this is the most magnetic force imaginable. A man who does not bend to her mood yet remains unmoved by the chaos of desire. She begins to respect the constancy of what she cannot command. The process triggers what behavioral psychologists describe as projection of value. When you embody calm autonomy, she projects onto you the qualities she unconsciously craves: strength, reliability, integrity, and unshakable confidence. These are not qualities you display through forceful assertion, but through absence, measured speech, and unwavering behavior. The irony is exquisite. By giving less, you create more. By withdrawing, you cause her mind to fill the void with reflection, curiosity, and reassessment. And in that reflection, respect grows organically, imperceptibly, yet irrevocably. This mechanism explains why women often seem more drawn to men who resist their attempts to gain attention. It is not the drama, the chase, or the pressure that inspires respect. It is the psychological tension created by emotional scarcity combined with self-mastery. Every pause, every withheld message, every calm refusal to engage with provocation becomes a message she cannot ignore. This man is independent, valuable, and unattainable by default. Her instincts, evolved over millennia, recognize this instantly, and her evaluation of you intensifies. What is remarkable is that this process is self-reinforcing. The more composure you maintain, the more her mind loops through scenarios, reassessing, replaying, and constructing your value against her own experiences. Each mental replay strengthens her perception. Respect is no longer a reaction to action, it becomes a reflection of your internal equilibrium. Her respect, therefore, is inseparable from the psychological principle you embody: detachment, calm authority, and the subtle, almost imperceptible demonstration of autonomy. The true power of letting go is not in scarcity alone, but in revealing the truth of your own independence. When you stop reacting to her whims, stop chasing approval, and stop seeking validation, you create a silent standard she cannot violate. She becomes aware that you exist beyond her influence, and in that awareness, her mind rewires itself. Curiosity transforms into reflection. Reflection transforms into admiration. Admiration evolves into respect. This is not coercion. It is the natural order of perception. A man anchored in his own principles becomes a mirror in which she is compelled to confront her own understanding of value. Observe the subtle signs: a change in tone, hesitation before a text, a newfound attentiveness in conversation. These micro-indicators are the markers of psychological recalibration. They signal that your withdrawal is not emptiness. It is weight, substance, and authority that she cannot dismiss. Every moment of silence you maintain carries more influence than any word you might speak. Every step back is a lesson in respect she cannot articulate, but instinctively feels. The lesson is inescapable. She respects the man who respects himself first. Not through lectures, not through manipulation, not through pleading, but through the quiet, relentless consistency of presence in absence. This is the invisible architecture of influence, the silent demonstration of mastery that separates the average man from the Stoic. While others chase, beg, and exhaust themselves, you exist, anchored, autonomous, and impervious. In that existence, her mind is compelled to reorient. In that existence, she begins to see you as more than desire. She begins to see you as principle. Now observe the culmination of the quiet work you have set into motion. She begins to hesitate, to question, to measure every interaction through the lens of your unshakable presence. It is subtle at first, a pause in conversation, a slight shift in tone, the curiosity that lingers in her eyes. But beneath these surface gestures, a deeper reckoning is taking place. Your withdrawal has done more than command attention. It has forced her mind into reflection. In this reflective space, respect is no longer optional. It is inevitable. She must acknowledge your autonomy, your unyielding standard, and your mastery of self, whether she articulates it or not. This is the paradox most men never understand. Power grows in silence, influence thrives in restraint, and respect blossoms in absence. Every step back you have taken, every moment of calm detachment, every refusal to react impulsively, has quietly rewritten her perception. She is no longer engaging with a man defined by her whims. She is engaging with a principle, your principle. And principles command a kind of unconscious reverence that fleeting gestures or words cannot replicate. In this final stage, her mind begins to reconstruct the narrative of your relationship. Past dismissals, overlooked gestures, moments of patience, all are re-evaluated under the lens of your newfound equanimity. The emotions she felt as you chased her are replaced with a new recognition. You are not swayed by desire. You are not diminished by neglect. You exist beyond the immediate fluctuations of emotion. This realization triggers a psychological recalibration that is profound in its subtlety. She sees the full measure of your value precisely because you have refused to define it for her. Observe the dynamics carefully. Respect does not arrive as a loud declaration. It emerges as a quiet acknowledgement, an instinctive alignment with your unshakable standard. Every word you speak now carries weight. Every action resonates with authority. She feels compelled to engage differently, not because of pressure, but because the psychological space you have created demands recognition. Her admiration, once superficial or fleeting, becomes anchored in the very structure of your presence. You are no longer a man she negotiates with. You are the benchmark she measures against. This is where true mastery asserts itself. Most men mistake attraction for control, attention for influence, or compliance for value. You, however, understand that the highest form of influence is silent, consistent, and principled. By letting go, you have not surrendered. You have demonstrated a power she cannot contrive or diminish. She begins to respect the limits you set, the calm you maintain, and the independence you embody. And in that respect, the foundations of desire, curiosity, and admiration converge. She is drawn, not by need or coercion, but by recognition of your unshakable self-possession. The echo of this principle is profound. The more firmly you hold to your own standard, the more her perception must align with it. She may resist initially, she may test, she may probe, but her mind, calibrated to recognize strength and autonomy, will inevitably acknowledge it. Respect is born in the tension between her instinctive impulses and the reality of your equilibrium. In this tension, she experiences a truth few ever articulate. He is unyielding, he is autonomous, he is not defined by my attention, and that is precisely what makes him invaluable. This is the lesson most men never learn. Letting go is not abandonment, it is ascension. When you release control over her reactions, when you stop feeding the cycles of validation and desperation, you step into a higher order of presence. Your worth is no longer negotiable, and her recognition of it becomes unavoidable. Every micro moment of reflection she experiences reinforces your value. Every unspoken acknowledgement strengthens the silent architecture of respect, and every recalibrated perception draws her closer to understanding the depth of your mastery. And so, the cycle closes. The initial withdrawal, once perceived as absence, transforms into a demonstration of principle. Her curiosity becomes admiration. Admiration evolves into respect. Respect solidifies into recognition of your intrinsic value. You have not chased, you have not coerced, you have embodied. And in that embodiment, she perceives not just the man she once overlooked, but the standard against which all others are measured. The power is quiet, invisible, and irrevocable. It lies in the principle, not the performance. In letting go, you have created a force that is beyond her immediate comprehension, yet impossible to ignore. She experiences a shift not because you acted on her, but because you acted on yourself. In that reflection, the ultimate truth reveals itself. Respect, once elusive, is earned by those who govern themselves first, and in governing themselves, they shape the perception of all who encounter them.